There are some things that take time. So when you see the fathers, when things happen, they don't react. They have gone through process for ages. It's not because they don't know what to say. They can come in anger, but they've seen too much. Sometimes when you say some things, they will say, you should have gone beyond this level. Now that you have said this, it means you didn't pass that class. You will go back for 4 years. But I won't go beyond here because theologians will come at me. You know, there are people who don't have a walk in the spirit. They are quoting verses they don't know. So let's stop here. But you need revelation.
You're welcome to Encounter Sermon. Stay blessed as you watch.
He said to Samson, his hair must not be cut. Now, that is not a doctrine. That is where his power as a minister of God is hidden. If you go about telling people, don't cut your hair, you will raise something that is inconsistent with the nature and character of the Spirit. But you see, if you don't even keep general consecration, you won't know God to a point where he can give you personal consecration. Because you must have a walk with God until you grow into sonship. He said, my sheep heareth my voice. In the kingdom, there are lambs and there are sheep. The lamb does not know the voice of the sheep. It follows the bleating of the sheep. It doesn't know the voice of the shepherd. It follows the bleating of the sheep. So when all of us came into the kingdom, we heard that prayer is important. And we saw it in the scriptures. We heard that fasting is important. And that's what the fathers did. But as we started walking with God, a point came, God now came to you and told you, every time money comes to your hand, give me 30%. Now, that is not a doctrine. It means you have journeyed to a level where your relationship with him has become personal. John said in 1 John chapter 1 from verse 1, he said that which was from the beginning, which we heard, which we saw, which we looked upon, then we handled. So they moved from what was taught generally to a personal relationship with God. A point comes, God tell you, when you wake up, before you greet anybody, before you go out, stay with me for 2 hours. That is what will determine your rank in this kingdom. You will not amount to anything if you don't journey beyond general consecrations to personal consecrations. There are times when God will tell you, for a season, hide yourself. And you are wondering, I have these are the seasons of my opportunities. People are calling you from everywhere. Doors are opening. God say, hide yourself. You will stay there. That's what will determine the powers that you will wield in this kingdom. So when you find men who are mighty in the kingdom, they have robust consecrations. And then when you move from personal consecrations, God will now give you special consecrations. Special consecrations are not personal and they are not general. Yet they are available for everybody who can pay the price of alignment to enter. So when God wants to raise people to lead a generation, he measures certain consecrations for that generation. Anybody who can rise to keep it will receive a mantle to lead his generation. So general consecration makes you a spiritual man. Personal consecrations activate the power of your ordination. But special consecration helps you to fill the voids of your generation. See, there are many prophets in every generation, but there are prophets that lead the generation. There are many apostles in every generation, but there are apostles that lead generations. There are many leaders who have grace for government, but there are few who become national leaders and there are few who become global leaders. There are special consecration. God does not tie to anybody. Many will rise up into those consecrations and by God's sovereign authority, he will pick somebody. Now, remember, if you are not a virgin, you are not part of the women that can give birth to Christ. That one, you won't be there. No matter how you love God, it's for virgins. It said, a virgin shall give birth. That means for that generation, a consecration benchmark has been created. So if you want to hope, if you hope to be the mother of Jesus, assuming he has not come, it means virginity for you is a must because it's a consecration for a generation. Nobody's name was there. A virgin shall give birth. So out of the many virgins, God will now pick one and say you are highly favored. But you see, you must first of all meet the consecration of that generation. This is why some of you, as you started working with God, a point came, God began to give you some consecration. You are now reading a book. You discover that the same thing God is telling you, he told somebody 50 years ago, and you are seeing the same thing in his books. And you're wondering, what's going on here? It means you have been aligned. Elohim Adonai. Elohim Adonai. Adonai. Elohim Adonai. You know, you are coming to marriageable age, and then suddenly God just whispers to you that you won't marry. No, now, if you preach that, you have moved the body of Christ into darkness. It's a special consecration. There are certain things that only eunuchs did for God. There are certain things that only virgins did for God. There are certain things that only people who can hazard their lives. They say Paul and Barnabas. They said, "These be the men that hazarded their lives for the gospel." So God will benchmark special consecration. If you read the Bible, you find some. And then when you have time to read after men that came before you, you will see that some of the consecration God gave you, he gave them exactly. Why do you think John the Baptist had the same consecration as Elijah? That was the consecration that sizes that mantle. If you will walk in that mantle, you must keep that consecration. So if you saw John, he was a replica of Elijah. Meanwhile, there were many generations apart. But the consecration shaped him into a dimension that the mantle can rest. So there are special consecrations. But God cannot start with you at the level of special consecration unless he has journeyed with you from general consecrations to personal consecrations. And if you perfect personal consecrations, then he begins to show you some things. He will not tell you, in Africa, I'm looking for 5 voices. That's why 5 voices, there are 2 million preachers. He will say, yes, those ones are handling local assemblies and territories. I need 5 voices for Africa. You now start wanting, is there a realm like that? Now, it will not be written anywhere. Because even if it's written, nobody will believe. You know, when John went to heaven and heard the voice of the 7 thunders, he wanted to write. The angel said, don't waste your time. They can't believe. Only those who travel this far can even accept it. God will now tell you, I want to raise 3 billionaires in dollars to move the gospel in the next dispensation. Now, this type is not business. It's entrustment. That's when you will know that the wealth of the Gentiles can be transferred. But he will tell you, your consecration is that 90% of your resources will not be for your personal agenda. If you preach it, you are wrong. It's not a doctrine. It's you now discover when you start reading that some people were giving 90%. And God used them mightily. That's how you discover your lineage in the spirit. Because every lineage you operate in the spirit is consecration that determines the pathway. So, the person you are taking over from may be a Canadian. You may be a Congolese. It has no respect for racial barrier. It is a spiritual order. And you can go and live with the person in Canada and not inherit that grace. Because a consecration is what determines it. So anybody who is mighty in this kingdom is mighty because of the consecrations that govern his life. When you find spiritual men, you will not meet their cars. You will not meet their buildings. You will find their altars. Because the consecrations they keep is what determines their path of navigation. So a man who does not have a consecration is not a spiritual man. Number 3, what makes men relevant in this kingdom is virtues. If you want to be great in this kingdom, listen. There are virtues that are a must. If you don't have love in you, forget it. There are certain things God can't give you. Because you may pass the test of consecration and fail in the test of virtue. God will still withhold that entrustment from you. Because if he gives you certain powers and you speak out of anger, you can take the church backward by 40 years. Pastor Godwin is aware. A man came the other time and he said he was angry with the state for 26 years. He said now he has released the state. He is an intercessor. But he said the state did not honor him. So he was angry with the state. Do you know the destiny of people that would have been affected in 26? When I heard it, I said, I respect your labor in the kingdom, but I don't think you have this authority. Because God can't risk giving this kind of authority to somebody who can hold the state to ransom. No. When you find men who truly have power, they are broken people. Because virtue is the regulator of authority in this kingdom. Virtue. Love, humility and brokenness, generosity, kindness, all of those virtues must be built into you. See, this is why sometimes you go to the mountain, you fast for 40 days, hoping that you encounter the mantle of Babalola. God will say, go back and forgive that your sister. that you are keeping malice with. Because no matter your revelation, and if you don't want to die of ulcer, go and forgive. Because your virtue, power is regulated by virtue. So if you find great men in the kingdom, 3 things regulate them: revelation, consecration, and virtue. And so these Bible studies are designed to build virtue. That's the point I'm trying to make with all of the introduction. Elohim Adonai. Elohim Adonai. You know, as a coming up minister, I have passion for power. Because I've seen the devil, I've seen the devil waste humanity. I've seen people trusting God like this with all they know and with all their faith. Their loved ones still die. It has happened to me too. I've seen people wail of pain, sickness. Some people, you come, they say they have been crying like that for 3 years. The devil has wreaked havoc on humanity. So I am somebody who wants to wield power. Because God cannot be glorified unless there's power. Humanity cannot be helped unless there's power. Purpose cannot be fulfilled unless there's power. So I'm somebody that after transformation, my next focus is wisdom and power. I don't joke with it. And so when we started pressing in prayer, I will go to a level and sense an unction. And God will tell me, pride. That grace can't rest. And then you'll start learning how to walk in humility. After you gauge humility to a level, after 6 months, you have attained an energy level. God will now release some measure. That means he's there, but you can't access it. You move that anger. You move that selfishness. I now discovered that there are some things that take time. So when you see the fathers, when things happen, they don't react. They have gone through process for ages. It's not because they don't know what to say. They can come in anger, but they've seen too much. Sometimes when you say some things, they will say, you should have gone beyond this level. Now that you have said this, it means you didn't pass that class. You will go back for 4 years. But I won't go beyond here because theologians will come at me. You know, there are people who don't have a walk in the spirit. They are quoting verses they don't know. So let's stop here. But you need revelation. You need consecration. And you need virtues. Let's celebrate Dr. Chiamaka for bringing that dimension. Contentment. Very important. Some of the things he was sharing, you know, time was too short. So she was quoting a lot of scriptures that she couldn't delve into. Take time and go and study those scriptures. It will help you. I'm telling you. Meanwhile, I think from today, I will start calling her Baruch Hashem Adonai. Blessed be the name of the Lord. She preached until she entered Hebrew.